Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the digital asset investor, and I know exactly who my core audience is. I may have never told you this before, but the numbers on who the core people that listen to my show are, who those people are, is very specific. When you have a YouTube channel, you can actually see who the people are. They have statistics for everything, and I know who you are. You are exactly like me, most of you, not all, but the core of the people that listen to this channel will identify with exactly what I'm talking about today. Because today I'm going to take you on a stroll back to the .com era, because most of you that are listening to my voice are in that 40 to 55-year-old range, and you saw it. You saw the .com bubble unfold. And when you saw digital assets come along, you're like me. You saw this as the second coming, but you knew that it was different this time. And it was different this time in that this time you would have an access to get in on you would have access to get in on the action that you couldn't get in on during the .com bubble. You watched all those young kids out in Silicon Valley get rich in a month's time and become millionaires. Many of them did not cash out and lost it all, but you saw the ones like Mark Cuban that didn't lose it all. You're like me, and you saw this as the second coming. And I'm not just talking to you, but I'm going to take us down, especially for the people that are not you and me. They don't know what I'm about to show because they weren't there. But I'm going to show you why what came out yesterday is so significant for you and me and everybody listening to me. All right. Twitter's on fire. The whole world's on fire because Brad Garlinghouse yesterday in Davos, Switzerland, Ashish Burla had gone out, and he was apparently watching the, for those of you that don't know, Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple did I think it was a paid thing where they paid for it's like an advertisement, but it was an interview with the Wall Street Journal in Davos, right in the middle of what's going on out there. So Ashish Burla started tweeting while he was listening to Brad Garlinghouse. I'm assuming we haven't seen the video yet, but he's tweeting this out. The first quote from Brad Garlinghouse that he tweets out is, "I'm bullish on Bitcoin as a store of value, but not for payments. You don't want to use Bitcoin at Starbucks because by the time you get your coffee, it'll be cold." Brad Garlinghouse, Wall Street Journal. How good point on why there won't be one crypto to rule them all. But then this is what everybody's talking about, is this right here. Quote, "In the next 12 months, you'll see IPOs in the crypto blockchain space. We're not going to be the first and we're not going to be the last, but I expect us to be on the leading side. It's a natural evolution for our company." Now, when I saw this, I immediately was like, yes. And I was also immediately like, well, that's not anything I didn't expect to be coming. Of course they're going to IPO. These guys are in Silicon Valley. It's all about it's all about, creating wealth for your investors. That's what, this is the big boy business, folks. This is the real world. Okay. It's about, whether you like it or not, it is about making money for your shareholders. Now, XRP, this is a new paradigm. And so XRP being in the mix just makes it even more exciting. But yes, newsflash, Ripple is going to make money for their shareholders. Otherwise, there are no investors. None of this happens. That's the way the world works. The world is about, let me say this real loud so everybody can hear. The world is about making money. That's how you feed your families. That's how the people at Ripple feed their families. That's how the world works. It's time, if you haven't put the big boy pants on and realized that, put them on now for the rest of the video. The world, I'll say it one more time, the world is about making money, and companies are about making a return on the investment to the shareholders. That is what it's about. And in our case, as XRP holders, even though we don't own shares of Ripple, some of us could. I don't, but we could go and find out how to do it. But this is not a bad thing, and I'm about to show you why. Okay? All right. So this is what everybody's talking about, the IPO of Ripple. Now, for those of you that don't know what an IPO, it's called an initial public offering. An initial public offering is offering shares to the public, and it's for the purpose of raising more money for Ripple to do what they do. But it's also going to make the Ripple investors very wealthy, as well as the executives and the employees. Now, before I go into this, I wanted to go over a few tweets that I thought were great when this came out. First, this is Mr. B. Remember, folks, Ripple's been called scammers since 2013 when I got in this. So Mr. B had a great tweet. Those scammers at Ripple have now officially scammed retail investors, banks, money remittance companies, the IMF, the Fed, the Treasury, the White House, and soon naive Wall Street. So he's making a very valid point here, is that this company, Ripple, all these guys like Tone Vays have been called, oh, it's a scam and all that. Well, apparently Wall Street doesn't think so, Tone. And also, by the way, Tone Vays, Kim.com does not think so either. Just a little reminder. Okay, now here's another tweet I thought was a great one. Galvatron was telling someone, he's not going to, more or less, he's not going to speculate on what this will do with the XRP price. This guy says, unrelated to XRP, will you comment on the idea of a Ripple IPO? And I think he said it pretty darn well. Ripple will become the Google of the Internet of Value. Couldn't disagree with that at all. He got it right there. Now, I want to show you what the theme of all this is, okay? And I want to show you what my thought pattern is. So I tweeted this out. The friends and family that made fun of you about XRP are about to start asking themselves how XRP will perform in the lead up to a Ripple IPO. Zero doubt. Hashtag zero doubt. This is a lot of what I see as the sentiment out there right now, this guy's reply. But this particular reply comes from a lack of understanding. And I'm not picking on this guy. I mean, he's coming from a good place, I'm sure. I just wanted to highlight this so that I can answer this. No, they will be asking about Ripple, the company. XRP and Ripple are two different things. Yes, I agree with that. An IPO will allow you to buy shares of the company, not XRP. I agree that an IPO will allow you to buy shares of the company and not XRP. I'm about to show you where I disagree with this guy. I replied to him, it will allow some to buy pre-IPO, but not most. And that's key. In other words, some investors are going to own Ripple shares of stock and will be able to buy Ripple shares of pre-IPO stock, but others will not. In fact, the majority of the world will not. So let's go through this. First, this is one more of my tweets that I sent out. I wonder how many non-Ripple stock option owners, non-accredited Ripple pre-IPO investors will buy XRP leading up to the Ripple IPO, hashtag zero doubt. This comes from my being around during the internet bubble, the rise of the internet. Now, those of you that weren't around, let's tell the story. What kind of set it off is the Netscape IPO back during the stock bubble. And what happened during the internet bubble is that a stock would IPO the same way Ripple's talking about doing, and that IPO would come out, and when it came out, it would go up. They might release it at $20 and the thing would be $100 before the end of the day. Well, who made the real money? The people that were employees that had stock options and the people that were accredited wealthy investors, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The accredited wealthy investors, those were the people who made the money, right? So listen to this. The IPO that inflated the dot-com bubble. Netscape went public on August 9th, 1995, just over a year after its founding, and only 8 months after releasing the first version of its groundbreaking web browser. Shares were offered at $28 a piece before Netscape's IPO. At the opening bell, the price shot up. By the end of August 9th, Netscape closed at $58.25 after reaching as high as $74.75 during the day. This meteoric rise valued the 16-month-old company at nearly $3 billion. Netscape had yet to make a dime of profit. See, remember, Brad Garlinghouse, if he wasn't there then, he was in Silicon Valley around the time that all this happened. Brad Garlinghouse and all these guys that are building these fintech companies, they were there. They learned the lessons of that time. Back then, you had companies IPOing that hadn't even made any money. This is a totally different scenario, first of all, and you need to understand that. Listen to this part. Netscape mesmerized investors and captured America's imagination. More than any other company, it set the technological, social, and financial tone for the internet age. Its founders, Mark Andreessen, who's an investor through, I forget the name of his company. He's now an investor in Ripple, by the way. And Jim Clark, a baby-faced 24-year-old programmer from the Midwest and restless mid-aged tech pioneer who badly wanted to strike gold again, inspired a generation of entrepreneurs to try to become tech millionaires. Executives with old economy experience thought they could stake a claim to startup riches by quitting their jobs and following the examples of Jim Barksdale, of the former McCall communications chief, who came in as Netscape CEO, and Netscape practiced openly sharing technology so other programmers in their companies could Netscape quickly skyrocketed to a share price of $174 at the end of 1994 before enacting a 2-for-1 split in early 1996. So this is what set it off, folks. So now, for those of you that want to go find out all about how this all unfolded, there's a great video on on YouTube that I'm not going to show you, but you can go check it out. Type in the true story of the internet.com bubble. They take you through exactly how it all unfolded. So now, let's talk about who made the real money during the dot-com bubble. It wasn't me. I was on the sideline. I tried to. Many of the people listening to my voice tried to. I actually went, because of what I'm showing you right here, I went and got a job with an internet startup, but it happened to be in 1999, right as everything began to collapse, okay? But the people that made the money, the first category were the people that did what I tried to do, go to an internet startup and get stock options. What are employee stock options? Employee stock options are a type of equity compensation granted by companies to their employees and executives. Rather than granting shares of stock directly, the company gives derivative options on stock instead. These options come in the form of regular call options and give the employee the right to buy the company's stock at a specified price for a finite period of time. So what companies back then were doing is they would lure talent to all of these tech companies by offering them stock options. I would imagine Brad Garlinghouse probably got a lot of stock options when he was at Yahoo. That was probably part of his compensation package. But there were many employees of these companies that were, like in Netscape's case, that were only 1 year old when they went public. These guys became millionaires, okay? All right. Well, that was one of the group that made the money. The other, and there was really two other, but I'm going to show you the other was the venture capitalists that invested in these companies pre-IPO. But the third category were the people that were able to buy, once the IPO was announced that it was going to happen, they were buying the IPO before it came out to the general public. And this was the third category of people. Who gets to buy IPO stocks? Institutions that get to participate in the initial public. In other words, huge investment banking firms like Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs, they underwrite these deals. Now, when I was at Morgan Stanley, which was around 2000, I think is when I was, or 2001. When I was at Morgan Stanley, I watched when these IPOs would come out, and the biggest brokers at Morgan Stanley would offer these pre-IPO stocks to their wealthiest clients. This is how the rich stay rich. I've talked about this before. And it says here, it's stacked in the favor of the large asset managers, but it's a money game and everyone is in it to make a buck. And that is where the stock goes. It's the best. It goes to the best customers of those brokers. The reality is your broker perceives individual investors as poor. Instead, management, employees, and friends and families of the company going public may be offered the chance to buy the shares at IPO price. So the bottom line is this. This is how the game works. Merrill Lynch, as an example, underwrites an IPO. Let's say they underwrite a Ripple IPO. Then those Ripple employees that have employee stock options are going to benefit. And then the venture capital firms and the investment firms that have invested in Ripple early, they're going to benefit. And then before they go IPO, it's going to be offered to the wealthy clients of Merrill Lynch who underwrote the stock. This is how the game works. This is how the game's always going to work. If any of you are not prepared for that, sorry, but this is the way the world works. Okay, now, here's where this gets interesting for you and for me. Here's where this gets very interesting for you and me that are XRP holders. Now, yes, XRP does not entitle you to any ownership whatsoever in Ripple, the company. It is not equity in Ripple. But if you understand how investors think, then you'll understand the way how this is going to unfold. You'll understand the way. And look, this is my opinion. This is my opinion. This is how I think. And I'm just, remember, folks, I am only talking about the speculation. None of this includes what I believe is going to happen with the utility of XRP, which I think is going to dwarf everything I'm talking about. I'm only talking to you about what I think is going to happen with the sentiment and the speculation in XRP. Okay? Here's what I think is going to happen. I think that this IPO talk, I think that when all of this finally sets off, you're going to start seeing this on CNBC and all of them. You're going to start seeing those Super Bowl commercials that we've been talking about. You're going to start seeing it all around you the way I've been telling you it's going to unfold. These IPOs are what's going to set it off. It's what is going to make this serious business in the eyes of the guys on CNBC. But it's going to help you and me. And let's look at how it is. In the internet bubble, we didn't have that option, just like now. We don't have the option of getting in the way that the people I just described are going to be in. But average Joe Schmo out there, you know what he's going to start saying? He's going to start saying, you know what? That digital asset investor guy, he's been talking about Ripple. Ripple's that company that did the XRP. They're talking about this Ripple company going public. Guess what? I can't get any of that Ripple stock pre-IPO. But you know what? I wonder if that XRP stock that XRP digital asset will benefit from all this IPO talk. Now, don't just take my word for it. Let's look at what some people have said. But this is where I think it's going to cause a lot of the digital assets, and not just XRP, but Bitcoin and these others, to just be catapulted, okay? Now, when they do an IPO, they do what's called an IPO roadshow. This starts off the marketing. This is going to get people talking about Ripple and XRP. Let's look at it.
A roadshow is a presentation of securities an issuer makes to potential buyers. Roadshows are an impactful marketing tool that can drum up investor interest, and they're crucial whenever a company makes an initial public offering. They work like this. A company assembles a team of executives to travel around the country and present to large groups of institutional or big money investors. The goal is to portray the company as profitable and progressive, and to create lots of interest in its offering. But they must be factual, and they can only be held after a company registers its intention to sell securities with the SEC. Roadshows contain details about a company's financial outlook, its reasons for an IPO, the probable sale price, and its potential for growth. Today, many companies present roadshows online, and some will hold private meetings for investors in the weeks before the offering. A non-deal roadshow occurs when executives hold discussions with current and potential investors, but nothing is offered for sale.
Okay, I wanted you to see that because what I want you to understand is there's two things I want you to get out of that. You're about to see the marketing machine rev up. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing I wanted you to see is that Ripple, by doing an IPO, it's a registered thing with the SEC. So I want to make one point before I forget to make it. And that is, if you look at the role of the SEC, the mission of the SEC, The first thing, the SEC has a three-part mission. The first part of their mission is to protect investors. And what I want you to think about as this all moves forward. So here you've got this company, Ripple, who's going to do an IPO. They're going to register with the SEC. Do you ask yourself this question? Do you believe? Now, remember, the SEC has let the XRP be out there and let it be bought and sold by investors like you and me since 2000, whenever the XRP came out. They've let it happen. They haven't shut it down. They haven't kicked anybody's doors in. Do you think they are now going to let Ripple, who promulgates the more than anyone, who is working on the number one use case for XRP, and both Ripple and the SEC know that some investors are buying XRP as a result of it. Do you think the SEC is going to let egg be all over its face, let this company go public and let all these investors in XRP get screwed? Do you think that's the way this goes down? I don't. Okay. The next thing. All right. I wanted to show you. You can go and this was the Facebook IPO Roadshow movie that you can go and watch on YouTube. This is an interesting watch if you want to see how they did it with Facebook. Fascinating. Go watch that. The next thing I want you to see is this. This is from Shane Nixon. He replied to a Mr. B tweet. He says, right now, less than 1% of the global population know about cryptocurrencies and Ripple or XRP. An IPO would act as a spotlight on Ripple, mainstream media, and traditional capital markets. Institutional retail investors inquiring about Ripple, XRP could be very good indeed. You better believe it. That's where this is going, folks. Now, don't just take my word for this. Let's look at Hodor's blog. Hodor, who I miss his blogs, he did a blog on this scenario. Ripple goes public. Let's go down to the section where he talks about marketing. Next level marketing. One very positive aspect of having a pile of cash from an IPO would be to spend it on things that grow the market value of either the company or XRP. Unlike all other companies quoted in this article as an example of an IPO, none have had a digital asset that comprises billions of dollars in value. Currently, Ripple is not speaking a lot about XRP or its ability to grow XRP's value because there are ongoing legal matters, both lawsuits and regulatory questions, that necessitate a more circumspect communication strategy. Once these legal outcomes are etched in stone, the company may see fit to ramp up its marketing. After all, there's nothing prohibiting a company, whether public or private, from promoting the ownership of an item in their inventory, right? And this marketing might be phenomenal. With $5 billion, no amount of potential marketing is out of reach. And the days of Super Bowl advertisements about digital assets may be upon us. To date, the only participants in the crypto market that have engaged mainstream advertising and its participants have been exchanges, and they make money no matter if the market goes up or down. My favorite ad is so far Kirsten Nairn's advertising for eToro. Just imagine if Ripple could hire him for XRP related promotions in post-IPO, post-legal issues world. And then he goes on down here to talk about how with all of these type of funds that Ripple could begin to grow the XRP ecosystem even more. Now, I want to finish this video with just one last thing I want to just throw out there for you. This is provided to me by Cryptopolis, sent this to me. And just as a little reminder, does anyone remember when Japanese financial giant SBI Holdings considers paying dividends in XRP? Japanese financial services giant SBI Holdings is considering paying shareholder dividends in the form of XRP tokens, following the same practice by its subsidiary Morningstar. And it says, anyway, bottom line is, I wanted to throw that out to you for one reason and one reason only. We are in an entirely new paradigm. This is the whole reason that I showed up to this party, folks. This is why I showed up, because I saw this. This is the reason Brad Garlinghouse showed up. He's talked about the internet, the .com days several times. All of these guys, Chris Larson, Brad Garlinghouse, these guys were there. They know this is the second coming of the internet. They know that this is going to be even bigger. They know, like Galgatron said, that Ripple's going to be the Google of this next phase, the internet of value. They know it. They know this is the fourth industrial revolution. Don't believe for a minute that and look, we didn't even talk in this video about what's really going on, what this XRP, why XRP is being mentioned by the World Economic Forum, why it's being mentioned in conjunction with banks issuing central bank digital currencies. Folks, sit tight and enjoy the ride, because this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button. And tell your friends and family that we don't have any idea what kind of craziness and how XRP is going to be involved, whether it's having dividends from companies paid in digital assets. We don't know. But we do know it's going to be exciting. Thank you for listening.